Oh, did I put your channel in the description? I think I did. Let me make sure. Yes, you are in the description.
Sweet.
Sweet.
All
All
right.
right. We are, to the best of my knowledge, live here. Let me refresh my page. It's always a weird start. Waiting for Seabolt
Doesn't look
Speaks.
like it's.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
It says I'm
Okay.
live. Maybe there's that might be just how long the actual delay is.
Yeah, I think so. It's up now.
All right, cool. So we are live here. I am here with Tokini Andy, which is super awesome. I'm super happy to have you here. Do you want to
Super happy to be here.
do you want to do an introduction or anything of that
Sure,
nature?
why not? Hey everyone, my name's Andy. I run the channel Tokini Andy, where, well, I've pretty much just become the Genki guy. I stream lessons for the textbook, the Japanese textbook Genki. I started out the channel to try and share stuff about my favorite city here in Japan, Nagano, and somehow it became a Japanese channel. So now I mostly teach Japanese. I teach Japanese grammar, and I do live stream Japanese lessons. And on the side, I stream games that generally have something to do with Japan, either like Japanese company made them, or sometimes like I play them in Japanese or Japanese learning games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's how I think Seabolt Speaks here found me. And
Yes.
we've been chatting a bit on my live streams and on Twitter and stuff like that. So finally, I got to jump on his live stream as
Yeah,
well.
man.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for joining. I do have Andy's stuff in the description below, so you can go check that out. I did find. I think I did find you through Genki, and because I think you had just streamed one, and I remember thinking, I think I had even tweeted you at one point, and I was like, man, you like more people need to follow your channel because I think it was around like 300 or 400. And then I remember waking up one day, and you had tweeted something about a video on TikTok going crazy, and
Yeah,
I
man.
was like. I had more subscribers than this guy yesterday, and he's got like 50 times the amount that I do now.
Yeah, TikTok, man. TikTok. So do you know Mayday-san?
I don't know if I do or not. Right off.
He's got a channel about sort of life in Japan. It's like a comedy channel about the realities of what it's like to live in Japan. And he was having his YouTube blew up almost immediately, but he wasn't happy with that level of exposure. He wanted more. So he jumped over to TikTok to test it out. Somebody had sort of said, "You should try this out, man."
Yeah.
And he had like 7,000 followers in a day. So Gorkum, welcome. And so anyway, he was telling me like you should try it, man. Make something on TikTok. So I made like a silly little video about it, like joking.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna do TikTok. I just made a joke TikTok. And I was like, let me make one serious one. So I made one serious one. And at the moment, that one serious one has 5 million views. So so I decided to spend a little bit more time on TikTok. So
Yeah, man.
and people will. But the cool thing about it is like it's super short form, so you can make stuff pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I try to make it sort of Japanese lesson like, so that people will come over to YouTube and want longer form stuff, and
Right.
it works out pretty well. So
Yeah, man.
yeah.
I actually I have a regular like a TikTok for like just I do random crap, but I did start one for my
Oh, yeah.
language thing, but then I never took it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I hear you.
I just kind of let it hang.
It's,
Yeah.
it's very different.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. I think it can be used for really, really good stuff for sure. I think the key is like because I do see a lot of people who will just literally take clips, like they'll literally just upload a YouTube video
Yeah.
on Genki. But I think if you make it or on Genki, I was thinking about Genki, but
Right.
on TikTok, and I think that if you're making exclusive content to TikTok and incorporate your YouTube, I think that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, that works better, I think.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like making YouTube content on top
yeah.
of making TikTok content,
Yeah.
like specific for TikTok, can be rough. So,
For sure.
but yeah.
Yeah, I did find your channel through Genki, and I thought that stuff I thought it was really really cool because I have Genki 1 and 2, and I've always wanted to go through the textbooks, which is kind of frustrating because I almost kind of found you a little too late because
Right.
I used to jump around language to language, and then finally at the beginning of this month I started just doing the pure like Matt versus Japan MIA stuff.
Yeah.
But I like almost like every couple of weeks I would go on YouTube because like I'm not good with like books and stuff, and I was like, if I can find somebody teaching this, like to where I
Right.
kind of go along with it, I think I would be good. And so I was still going through, and I actually did go through a couple lessons, and then I still like to jump on because I still think I mean, I'm not good in Japanese, but I still think you can learn anything at any point. You know, you might miss
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that you didn't
absolutely.
know. So that's why I like them. But I know that what am I trying to say here? I've lost my train of thought, which I do super often.
No, no worries.
But I think
So like, yeah,
I think you're providing a service that's really good because I think Genki is a very dense textbook, and
it
if you
is.
don't really have a lot of discipline, it's hard to go through by yourself.
It can be very difficult. The problem with Genki too is that, especially the earlier editions, I don't think they hired an actual writer to do their translations.
Mm,
Like, because it's a Japanese company that writes the book, right? So
right.
how I imagine it worked, this is in my head at least, is they wrote it out in Japanese and then had someone translate it. That's what I'm imagining happened because
Right.
that's what it looks like in the descriptions. It's
Right.
very, to be frank, it's poorly written. The first and second editions, and the third edition, it looks like they actually hired a writer, so it's a bit better. But like, what's good for some people with textbooks is that it provides some structure when it comes to grammar.
Mm,
Like when I started learning Japanese, I went with more of an immersion, I suppose. Literally, I was here in Japan, so an
right.
immersion
Right.
approach. And but like, I didn't use a textbook, so I was just using, like, I have this grammar dictionary right here. Um, I was using these, the Dictionary of Basic and Intermediate Japanese Grammar, and just sort of picking out the grammar that I found interesting to learn. And that was great, but what happened was I missed some really basic stuff
Mm,
because I was skipping around to more advanced stuff, which was fine. Like, I would have a conversation and I'd use some advanced grammar, and that would be, for a beginner, wow, he knows that. But then, like, I couldn't actually pick up on the really simple stuff people were saying to me.
right.
So I had to end up coming back to the textbook. So like, in the beginning, I didn't like textbooks when I started studying Japanese.
Mm,
I was of the opinion that textbooks meh. But
right.
then when I had to come back to it, I was like, okay, there's a place for it. There's a place for textbooks and language learning, and that's, in my opinion, when you sort of start getting a feel for it a little bit, you need the grammar, man. You need the
Yeah.
grammar eventually. So it's important to be able to have that to go back.
Yeah.
But then you were saying with Genki, whether my channel is like, providing a service or whatever. Um, I was trying to figure out what to do with my channel. Like, I was enjoying making stuff, but I needed
Yeah.
to sort of focus down. And someone asked me a question about lesson 3 in Genki, which is the dreaded first conjugation of verbs lesson, and
Right.
it's poor. Like, it was rough. So the person was having all these troubles, and I hadn't read that chapter, and I was like, why is this so confusing? This is like the easiest thing to do in the language, I felt
Right.
like. And I went and I read the chapter, and it was terrible. Like, I couldn't understand it, and I've been speaking Japanese for 7 years.
Right.
So I went looking on YouTube. I was like, are people going over this? And there was no lessons on Genki on all of YouTube. There's nothing. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I know what I have to do.
No. I had
So
found one channel who had they did I think they did part 1 of chapter 1,
yes,
and I was
yes.
like, yes, and then like that was they never uploaded again, and I was like, what is happening?
No, they went off
So
and did other stuff.
yeah,
And that video was huge too. I don't know what that person
yeah,
was thinking. They could have taken
yeah.
that somewhere.
I
But
think
yeah,
I think that honestly, man, I think that stuff is good. Like I do obviously do the full immersion thing, and also I do see the comment. I'll get to that comment in just a second, but like I do think that there is benefits to that stuff, right? Like, and that's the thing. I think that's
yeah,
where I'm going to be a little bit different from like my goal is the mass immersion approach thing, right? But I'm
yeah,
mostly taking from that, picking out some vocabulary, making flashcards, and then immersing. But that doesn't mean that I still can't enjoy a little bit of extra, right? Like I can't,
no, of course
read a
not.
little bit of grammar. And I even talked to Matt about it, and I said, even if I have to learn grammar at some point, and I know that you can pick it up, but you still need to learn about it. So,
Mm,
I'm just trying to take, even if it's 15 minutes a day, reading through a little bit of a textbook. I don't even have to do the lessons and stuff as much as just kind of see what
right.
sticks and then go from there.
I think that's important with anything, like especially language learning, is the need to sort of mix it up. Like,
Yeah.
100% focusing on a textbook, you're going to get really bored really fast, and you're going to give up. But 100% focusing on something else is the same problem. So
Yeah.
so having that sort of flexibility to be like, yeah, I'm going to go back and learn some grammar is fine. You got to tell me sometime today. You got to tell me a little bit about Matt's approach, because I'm hearing about it all over the place, and
Yeah.
I don't know much about it. It sounds a lot like AJAT. I don't know if
It's
you know what AJAT is.
yeah, it's very much like that.
Okay.
So like and also the guy. So Matt is big into pitch accent, and why I got so
Mm.
frustrated with that guy in your comments section is because
Yeah.
it puts a bad name on Matt, and Matt would hate that guy
Yeah.
for doing that because you're being a douchebag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
It's so pitch accent seems to be very trendy now, um, in the language learning community and surprisingly in Japan as well. On my TikTok, I posted a video that was just like something for my Patreon. It was like, what I do is I have people do challenges. So I give them one of the textbook exercises and I make them do the dialogue in a skit on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever. So they're supposed to record themselves doing a skit speaking to two different characters or whatever using the dialogue. And I posted an example and like that the video got 200 or 300,000 views and it was mostly Japanese people. It was two schools. One was, wow, your pronunciation is awesome, and the other school was, you need to work on intonation. And I was laughing. It's funny because 5-6 years ago when I was still studying, nobody even knew what pitch accent was. It was not in the conversation. And then Dogen came around, right, and his amazing pitch accent and started his lessons, and it became a thing. And I think it's cool if people want to really, really focus on that. But the thing is with Japanese is it's a thing. It's real pitch accent, right? It makes you sound more native. But the thing is that Japanese is so much about context that there's almost zero situations where improper pitch accent is going to make you hard to understand. Like almost nothing.
Yeah. If I said Ame is falling from the sky,
you're right.
It's
nobody's gonna think it's candy.
Yeah, nobody's gonna think it's candy,
unless maybe you're at Disneyland or something. But
that's true, I guess. But you would be able to contextually see.
You could see, okay,
yeah,
it's rain. It's rain. So I get it, and I think it's a worthy goal wanting to sound like a native, but it's also very, very high level. Like if you can't speak it and you're spending all your time worrying about pitch accent, you're wasting your time. I think. Personally, someone like Matt, who's already pretty fluent, or Dogen, like great, they can do that.
Yeah, they can add that on there. And like I said, I bet both of those guys hate the idea of people who follow their stuff going, because it's almost like become this like hipster thing where people are like, I know, and it's like, but all it does is paint the people that they're trying to promote in a bad light.
It does, and I doubt the people who are attacking others for their pitch accent have perfect pitch accent.
Yeah,
because like. Well, even Dogen, who I love his videos, I think they're amazing. But he films each line of his skits like 20 times until he gets it right. Because it's not like when he's just speaking naturally, every single word that comes out of his mouth is perfect.
Yeah.
So people get this sort of unrealistic expectation that they're gonna have perfect pitch accent, or everyone should have perfect pitch accent. But like, it's not just. I don't think it's very realistic. Or necessary, depending on what your goals are. Yeah. My goals have always been to communicate, not to sound like a native.
Yeah, so. And that's the biggest goal. I had somebody in a live stream when I did it Sunday ask me if my goal was to sound like a native, and I said that like right now, man, that's jumping so far ahead of the gun that like
so far.
If I set a goal like that, then I get overwhelmed. So my goal right now is just to be able to comprehend even 20% of what's being said to me. I'm taking it in those small chunks, you know. So.
Well, even that question, is your goal to sound native, or that goal in general? It's just my opinion, but I think it misses the whole point. Like, for some people, language learning is a hobby, which is fine. Like just a hobby, they don't care about actually using it to talk to people. It's more of like they enjoy the process, which is also fine.
Yeah.
But language in particular it's a communication method, right? That's what it's for. It's for talking to people and reading and learning stuff. So, like, sounding like a native, like, is it really? I don't know. It seems besides the point. And too lofty of a goal that isn't really. You can't set smaller goals to get to that point. Right. You gotta start a little bit smaller than that, I feel like.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And I think, and that definitely goes into it's definitely up to each person's goal, or what their goal is. because and again, my goal as I become better in Japanese, right? Because I will say, and I know that you asked me what, and I'll get into more about what MIA is and stuff, but I will say in the month that I've been immersing in content, I for the first time in years feel like I'm making progress in Japanese, and I've been studying it off and on for 10 years, so
right.
can't do
Well, that's good.
anything, but down the road, once I get better, I may do that. But my thought is, right now, right, the mentality I have right now is, if I go to Japan and I speak and sound perfect, no one's going to mistake me for a native because I look the way that I do.
Right? No, it doesn't matter, man.
That's. I mean, I could do a cool little VR chat thing or something, but again, but
for views or whatever.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's. And who cares if they think you're a native? In my opinion, like. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Especially in Japan. Like, I'm sorry, if we want to talk about the culture of Japan, it doesn't matter how perfect your Japanese is. Nobody is ever going to treat you like a native. Unfortunately, I don't know. It's just not. It's not. Japan is 98% 100% Japanese.
Yeah.
Like, ethnically speaking, like it's a very homogenous country still. So they don't. It's not like I don't have a problem with it. It's just. It's a fact.
I've heard that they're still very, very kind of wary of foreigner. Not wary, I don't know if that's the right word, but like kind of the spot where they're still very nationalistic in terms of like we're Japanese.
Not in like
but like
they're not nationalistic in like so you're not wrong, but they're not nationalistic in like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a malicious way.
Right.
But they are like sort of subconsciously
they're very proud.
Yeah.
Maybe that's...
And they have a pretty cool history for the most part. So, like, you can't blame them necessarily. And also, their education system doesn't really give them a picture of the outside world very much. It's very much Japan. So, like, it's what happens. But the point is, like, you're never going to be a native Japanese person, no matter how perfect your Japanese is. So... Yeah. Make more realistic goals is what I mean.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do for sure. All right, I'm going to answer a couple of these questions, or we can answer.
Yeah.
So, do you guys think living in the country of your target language is the key to learning any language the fastest? I have my opinions on that, but I'll let you go first.
All right. Yeah, we probably have similar opinions. I think it can be a great benefit for learning language, but it doesn't mean you're going to learn fast just because you're in the country. So let me just tell you a quick story to illustrate that. When I came to Japan, I spoke one word of Japanese, and that was gomen nasai, which means sorry. That's it. That's all I knew. I knew nothing.
It's a good one.
It's important. Arguably, sumimasen is more important. But so my first 6 months here, every friend I made either was an English teacher or was a Japanese person who was interested in learning English. So I didn't learn any more words of Japanese for 6 months while I was in Japan. And I made friends who'd been here for 10 years, and they didn't speak Japanese at all. Nothing. 10 years. So just because you're in the country doesn't mean you can't make a bubble of English or your native language and never need to speak the local language. I know most people I know who have lived in Japan for 10 years or more don't speak Japanese because you don't have to.
Yeah.
So no, it's not a magic pill to help you learn a language. But obviously, if you live in the country, you're going to have more opportunities to speak, to read, to be around it every day, basically. If you go out of your way, you're still gonna have to go out of your way. Yeah. But it helps. But it's not a magic pill. Yeah. Well, so what? I feel like we're probably on the same page there. But.
No, I agree. I think if you put yourself on this, like, I think a lot of people think if they go to the country and just live there, they're just naturally going to pick it up with no effort. But there's so many cases of people who are. I've seen videos of when, for example, when Lao Shu goes and he'll speak Chinese to someone. And then they'll say, I've been living in America for 30 years and I don't speak any English. So that's a great, like, just because you're there doesn't make, so you're going to have to make effort. The problem is, I don't know if you're an English speaker, if you're a native English speaker, people always talk about the advantages that we have. There's a lot of disadvantages because everywhere you go, they're learning English. They want to practice English. They don't want to talk their native language.
And they want a free teacher.
Yep. So I think we're very much on the same page there.
Yeah. I think the only way that going to a country and like picking up the language naturally is sort of realistic is if, like you pointed out, your native English your native language isn't English, and you go to a place where no one speaks your native language. And what that does is it forces you to learn the language. You
Yeah.
have to, like, just to survive.
Yep.
Like in Japan, jobs for foreign born people, specifically English speakers, are very limited. You can basically be an English teacher or you can be an English teacher. And
Right.
so like like that's it basically.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Tokyo, maybe you can be a software developer or something like that.
Yeah.
But point being, you're still going to have to go out of your way to actually practice. I remember, I don't know if you ever saw, the first person who started this whole immersion thing, I think, was Fluent in 3 Months was the name of his blog. It was
Benny
years ago.
Lewis.
He's Irish guy. Yeah, Benny Lewis.
Yeah.
And he always talked about his story. First story was when he was living in Spain. He lived there for like a year or something. And at the end of that year, he couldn't speak any Spanish. Like a whole year. He was going to classes for it. And then he decided to sort of quit speaking English and just focus really hard on it. And he became able to speak it. But
Yeah.
what that means is you got to put in effort. There's no effortless way to do it.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you not lose motivation when learning? I'm probably a terrible person to ask because I've studied every language under the sun, but
Yeah. There's a couple ways. The first is to always remind yourself, not to always remind yourself. The first is to have a reason, like
Right.
having a reason and a goal for learning the language is important. If you just want to learn it because I don't know why, it's just cool. I mean, that can be a reason to learn a language, but generally it's not going to keep you going when you've got 500 new vocabulary words that you have or reviews to do on Anki or whatever.
Right.
And you're like, you know what? It's not that cool. If you have a realistic goal that you're aiming towards, it makes everything in life easier, like having a little goal. And specifically a goal that you can break down into smaller goals, ideally daily little goals that you just sort of feel good when you get done every day. Like if you're like, I want to learn 100 words about rock climbing because I really love rock climbing. That's a nice little goal, right? And you've got a specific number of words. And it's like when you're done with that, you'll be able to talk to people about rock climbing. Maybe you like rock climbing.
Yeah.
So like that keeps pushing you to learn those 100 words and to review the 100 words. Just, having real goals is what has always helped me to stay motivated.
Yeah. That's what's keeping me motivated right now is what I'm watching on YouTube or Netflix or anything is stuff that I have an interest in, right? I'm watching, Death Note, which I'm not a big anime guy, but I am watching Death Note. I've watched Erased like 2 or 3 times, which I can't remember what it's called in Japanese, Boku no whatever it's called, but I've watched it a ton, and I'm watching on YouTube. I'm watching a girl play Mario Maker because I love that. I love Animal Crossing, so it's stuff that interests me. So that's what's keeping me motivated. Now, at the end of a year, I may be able to only talk to you about things in Animal Crossing, but you know what? That's cool. Like I'm perfectly fine with it. But also, it's kind of a cheat because Animal Crossing deals with real world stuff, right? Trees, roadways, houses, construction. So you're learning real world vocabulary through a video game.
And all the animals and the information about them are real. There's no fantasy things going on in there. So that's very useful. And furthermore, like what you make an amazing point, because what I always tell people is they're always wondering, people are always asking me whether they should learn every single word in the textbook. Like if they can't remember a certain word, should they still move on to the next chapter is what they ask me. And what I like to point out is like, would you use that word in your native language?
Right.
Like if you were speaking with people, are you going to be talking about, I don't know, magazines?
Right.
Like, is that something you talk about? And if it's not, just put it aside, man. You're never going to use that word in Japanese. It might come up and you might not know it, but you can look it up. Like I still look up words every day, and I speak Japanese all day, every day, but I still have to look up words.
Right.
That's fine. So like, learn stuff that you care about, and you'll stay motivated. Absolutely.
No, I agree, and that's the key. Like, I in Japanese am never going to learn the details of a car engine, and that's because I don't know them in English, and I don't care to know them in English. So I definitely don't care in Japanese. So definitely kind of pick and choose where you're talking. All right, let's see. I'm in a current weird spot with English. I can understand most YouTube videos at 2 times. How is that weird? But I don't understand every single movie or cartoon. even at normal speed, and most books for adults are pretty difficult. I think I'm having trouble learning enough vocabulary. I'm just not sure how. Do you have any tips to find the sweet spot as far as media that I could learn, but it wouldn't be I plus 100 or I plus 5, but it seems like that's all I come across. I mean, like I'm the way I'm picking up vocabulary right now, which I get. I don't know, man. I've had not arguments, but there's a lot of people who say that what I'm basically there's a lot of people who say the way that I'm doing it you can't learn, and I am learning, so I don't really know. I literally
it's a pretty good rebuttal.
Yeah. So the way that I'm learning vocabulary right now is literally through immersion. I don't understand a thing of what's happening, right? Like at all. And I know that people are very against the idea of incomprehensible input, but my first month I learned over 20 words based on context alone, and because I had listened and watched so much that words started to jump out at me, and I had heard them enough. I didn't know that I had, but my brain had heard them enough to where it stuck. I would look it up to get one final thing, like, oh, okay, Maji means really, like questioning, like Maji, okay. I never had to make a flashcard or anything. It's just stuck there. And I learned multiple words that way. I always give these examples, but I learned nagaru for throw, hairu or haireru or haire. I know there's like two versions, but like to enter or go, and that's from Mario Maker. But like, I saw it so much, and I picked up that pattern that like and that's what happens. So that's the way I'm learning. I just think that it's just exposure to the language. Because if you're understanding videos at 2 times, you clearly have a solid vocabulary, and your listening comprehension is good. You just need to.
You just need more of it.
Need more of it.
It all comes down to repetition, man. Like, there's a lot of magic pills out there and techniques and all this stuff, but what it's going to come down to in the end is how many times you've either seen it, heard it, said it, or whatever. Like, how many times. For example, a lot of people learning Japanese will they'll come across either James Heisig for kanji or Wanikani, right? Yep. And they love to use mnemonics, which are great. Mnemonics are awesome.
Right.
But the thing is they're not forever.
Right.
Okay. So a mnemonic is it's short term. You learn a mnemonic, and when you see it again, it helps you remember it, the next time, and then the next time. But eventually the mnemonic goes away. I learned over 2,000 kanji when I was studying Japanese 7 years ago. I can't tell you a single mnemonic that I used for them. Not a single one. But I've seen them and written them and read them so many times now that you'll lose the mnemonic, right?
Right.
And so my point is that what happened there is the mnemonic helped me short term to keep remembering it each time. But then eventually it was that repetition of seeing it so many, many, many times. And for you, it was hearing Maji in context so many times that eventually you picked it up. So it's always going to come down to repetition. So passion for language learning, what I'm getting at here is you don't understand it now, but watch it 100 more times and you probably will. It's not a pleasant answer, but just got to do it more. Probably.
Yeah, it's I think it it is. It's repetition is key for sure. And I think using it, because that is one thing. Like I'm using remember the kanji, but I'm using that on top of this month I started doing reading, and I may not know what it says, but I am recognizing the kanji that I've seen in context and hearing it. Right. So I'm putting
which is so much better than just seeing it alone in an Anki deck. Like actually, it's so exciting when you see one of the kanji you learn for the first time in print. It's like, oh, I know what that means.
That happened. I tweeted about that not too long ago. I tweeted a picture from Animal Crossing, and I had no clue what was happening, but I circled almost every kanji on the page because I was like, this means plan, that means tree, this is river. Right. I know what these mean.
Right.
Like it's
fun.
It's
Kanji's
really cool.
fun.
It is, man. Jeremy Gordon, sorry if this has been asked before. I was wondering if Andy knew any good companies in Japan for teaching mainly adults.
Teaching mainly adults. Okay. So, frankly, there's not many. I mean, there's a ton of companies, but good companies that I can recommend is hard for teaching adults. When I first came to Japan, I worked for a company called Amity, who is owned by a company called Aeon, Aeon. And Amity was the kids and adults version of that. And Aeon is just adults for the most part. And it's a lot of work, like a lot of not really any overtime, but it's a lot of class time. But they'll get you here, right? They'll get you a visa. They'll give you an apartment. So if your goal is just to get here and then find something else later, Eon is not a terrible option. They're better than a lot of the alternatives.
Alternative.
But yeah, but I don't know many. I teach kids, man. I worked at Eon for 2 years, and then I worked at a kindergarten. So I didn't teach English for the past 4.5 years or whatever. I was just a kindergarten homeroom teacher. So I was
Cool.
teaching kids origami and stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like how to fold origami, which is awesome. I don't. Yeah, that was great.
That's
And then just recently I switched to ALT. So I'm teaching at 4 different kindergartens. This time I'll be teaching English and then a high school twice a week.
whoa.
But that's because I wanted to focus more on my YouTube and stuff. So it's a very small amount
Yeah.
of hours.
You work for like because my friend Evan that went over there he lives a little bit outside of Tokyo, and he went over there for like like a program like what is
Mm,
it called, like Jet or whatever those programs are. But
yeah.
he just legit works for like the Japanese government as a school teacher in a school now. So that's like what you're doing,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep. A little bit different.
kind of.
So yeah, that's one thing. It's similar. It's very similar. So the first thing I did was um it was a private company, but there's an immersion program in their kindergarten. So first of all, what people might not know is that in Japan, schools are sort of divided up not just into grades but also into classes. So within a certain grade level, there will be maybe 5 or 6 classes that those kids are together all the time, every day in the same room, and other teachers come in to teach the
Ah,
subjects to their room. So they never, like, if you've watched anime before, there's like a gumi or whatever, right? That means
right.
that they're in the same grade as the class next door, but they do everything together. So it's sort of
Gotcha.
like they have their group thing. So that's true in kindergarten as well. So for each level, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, there's a couple classes for each age group, and those kids do everything together. And in my kindergarten, there was one class in each grade that was all in English. So it's just Japanese kids, but it's all day. They do everything all the other kids do, but in English. So I taught in that kind of class for about 4.5 years. So that was fun, but there's not much stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And then what your friend probably does is I have a couple friends who work for the city hall or for the prefecture, and they send them out to teach English at actual schools, and they're just like regular teachers, and that's pretty cool.
Gotcha.
But for now, yeah. So now I'm doing like a part-time gig, just working for a private company that sort of sends me out to a couple different kindergartens and high schools. So, but it's very low hours, which gives me more time to work on
And
this
YouTube.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
That's cool. Yeah, so it's different because it's not what he. But it's cool that like you made it over there, because like a lot of people I guess go over there with these companies, and then once your contract's up, it's like what's happening. But like
Yeah,
you're just like kind of just integrated into Japanese society. You're just there
I
now.
tried. I tried. That was sort of my goal for a while. I only planned to come here for a year. I was like,
Oh,
I didn't know anything about Japan. I was just gonna come here for a year, make some money, and go somewhere else. But I loved it. Like I loved, particularly where I live, Nagano, so much that I decided to recontract for a year with that company. But then teaching eikaiwa, which is English conversation, particularly kids eikaiwa, it's very rigid.
hmm,
Like they generally have a method, and you teach the same thing to same age kids, like, and then the next year you cycle around and do the same thing all over again. So it got really, for lack of a better word, boring.
boring.
So I decided to look for something else that was more real, like more, like you said, integrated. And
Yeah,
I found it. So
that's
it's
awesome,
cool.
man. Japan can't get rid of Andy.
No, no, they can't.
Let's
Uh,
see. I started watching Death Note. I'm just making sure. There's been some stuff
there's
come
a
in.
couple
I just
questions, yeah.
skim through. Yeah, blah blah blah. It's so funny when you learn a word, all of a sudden pops up everywhere. Yes, that happens all the time. I learned Kana with remembering the Kana book. Foremost mnemonics helped celebrate, but I forgot almost all mnemonics. You guys have a good point. I think I just got short 10,000 hour. I'm trying to see. There's a lot of. I'm reading your stuff. I just
A
want
lot
to make
going
sure.
on.
Just want to make sure
No
I
worries.
hit the questions. You guys using the school? Why people don't put ever? You guys think? Okay. You guys think Seabolt's baby girl? What in the world? I
I
have.
love the name.
That's cool. I didn't know that I've made it that far yet. Okay.
You
Uh,
have, my friend. You
you,
have.
you guys think the language teaching system in schools is the reason why people don't put effort into learning a new language? That's an interesting.
Mm,
That's a hot take a little bit, but I get where you're coming
mm.
from.
Um, you guys think the language teaching system in schools is the reason why people don't put the effort to learn a new language? I don't think that that's the reason people don't put effort. I think the system in schools, I don't think it's good. I don't think it actually teaches people to use a language. It teaches people to get ready for a test
Yeah.
where they memorize some vocab, use it on the test, and never see it again, and therefore, of course, forget it. So I think it gives people sort of this bad idea that they can't learn languages, that they're incapable of doing it, and that it's really, really hard. And that's because everyone did it in school and they weren't able to learn it, and they don't realize that, there's other ways to learn a language. So it gives people bad expectations, but it's not the reason they don't put an effort. People don't put an effort because, well, it's hard to put an effort.
Yeah. I think from my stance and just being in America all the time, I
Mm,
think I think that's a very American thing. Because in a lot of other countries, they do put like in almost every other country, it's very if you don't speak two languages, you're actually in the minority, or at
yeah,
least
it's
if
true.
you've been studying. I think
Right.
that's a very American thing, and I think it's just because a lot of Americans are still under this whole thing of English. English is everywhere. Why would I learn another language?
Right. Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I do think that they could kind of reform the way that they teach languages in school,
It would be
but
hard though, I
it would
think.
be I think it would be very hard, and I don't have the answer to how it should be done. So,
No,
but
no, no, I don't either. Because like it's a systemic thing, right? It's schools, they have certain goals. They need
yeah,
a bunch of kids that are actually very different
right,
to learn the same thing in the same way.
yeah,
So switching, like, how would you even test whether they can, speak the new language or whatever? I don't know. It's a bag of cats that's hard to get into.
it
I
is.
will mention that it's not just America. Japan is actually terrible when it comes to language curriculums. um,
Okay,
they teach English
that's
basically they learn English for like minimum 5 to 6 years, but they're moving it down to lower level elementary school. So they're going to be doing English for 8 to 10 years of their life.
oh
But I
yeah,
guarantee you that the vast majority will not be able to speak any English. And that's because they teach for tests and they teach
right,
stuff that you don't need.
yeah,
Like I've looked at high school textbooks here, and I've never used 90% of the words that are in those textbooks. So,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
it's unfortunate, but
They need to do something,
it's
but maybe one day they'll do something. But again, I don't have.
yeah,
There's
I
a
don't
lot of things that I think needs work, but I
don't have the answers.
don't have
Yeah,
the answers.
no, agreed.
Do you guys think that learning a language that is a different script is really hard when all you're used to is the Latin alphabet? I
No,
don't think so.
no. And the reason is initially it's harder because you need to learn the script, but
Right.
it doesn't actually take that long if you put in a couple hours, like to learn hiragana and whatever. Kanji takes forever,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
whatever. Um, and here's the reason. If the language you're learning is written in Latin, the Latin alphabet, it's way easier to bring over your language into the new language. Like it's really easy to read foreign languages that are written in your script in the pronunciation of your language. But if you're reading Japanese in hiragana, for example, the hardest part for people learning Japanese is not using sounds from their language
Yeah.
because Japanese has a very limited amount of sounds. So what happens is people will use, I don't know, what's an example? A, like the sound A or something,
Right.
which, we don't have it. But if you're reading only hiragana, that doesn't give you any space to, use those sounds because it's
Right.
not written out. It's only ha, wa,
Right.
there's no way or whatever. I guess you could write that out somehow, but So it actually makes it a little bit easier in the long run. Short term, yeah, it's a little hard to learn a new script, but it it looks harder than it is.
Yeah, oh,
Um,
absolutely. I think a lot of it has to do too with if you have a passion for it. Like, I didn't find any struggle at all learning
mhm.
hiragana,
Yeah,
but it's because when I started in 2009, all I wanted to do, I thought it was so cool to be able to read those characters and like read them and
yeah.
like
It can be super motivating when you're like, dude, I can read this. What is going
yeah,
on?
I know I
Nuts.
know what this is. This isn't just lines on a paper now. Like,
Right. Come to
cat,
Japan says tunnel, Andy, tunnel. Yeah, it's a good example.
cat,
In Japanese, the word for tunnel is tonneru, tonneru.
tonneru.
And if you say tanneru in Japanese, it sounds the same to most people. Tanneru, tonneru. People won't know what you're saying. They have no idea what you're saying in Japanese if you say tanneru. But you have to say tonneru because does not exist in Japanese. So
Yeah.
writing it out in hiragana or katakana solves that problem for you.
Well, that's the thing that I noticed. I noticed this last year because like I was on a Japanese kick for. I go and spell. This is actually the longest that I've put since I first started learning Japanese because I'm like a month and a week in, like of just purely going like super hard. But I noticed last year when I was in one of my Japanese phases when I was just using nothing but applications and stuff and just running myself into the ground. But I noticed that everyone in America says kawaii wrong. Like for
Oh, of
cute,
course.
they say kowai, which actually means what, scared?
Scary. Yeah.
Yeah. So like when they're actually trying to be cute, they're like, "Oh, kawaii." I'm like, "That's you're saying they're scary. That's hilarious."
Scary. That's really funny. There's a lot of words. American accent in Japanese is pretty hysterical in a lot of situations. Japanese people miraculously understand it better than I can. But yeah, stuff like that
Yeah,
is
kawaii. You're
pretty funny
kawaii.
to listen
Oh,
to.
yeah. I'm
You're
sure
kawaii.
if you would say that
Oh,
to a Japanese person, they'd be like, "Uh,
thank
thank you.
you.
I get where you're coming from, but whatever."
Yeah, it's true.
Alex Trotman says, "Do y'all have any other skills other than languages?" I so I don't necessarily languages. So here's my opinion on this. I don't think languages are skills. I think it's dedication. Like, I mean, like it's. I don't know how to say that without sounding like an idiot. Either way, like
Haha.
I think a lot of times people put the word skill or talented onto something, and that's probably a lot more from people not in the language community. Like I've said to people, like I'm learning Japanese, and they're like, I don't have that talent, and I'm like, neither do I. I'm spending hundreds of hours of my time. Like you get what I'm saying from that.
I get what
But
you're saying.
but in turn, you're probably meaning skills in a completely different manner. I think I do a lot of
Yeah, no,
reading too
I
much
think what he
into
means is like an actual
like a trade skill or something of that
trade
nature.
skill. Yeah, something like that. In which case, language can be. You can write it on your
Yeah,
resume. People
yeah,
will take
for
that as a
sure.
skill.
I
You do video editing and stuff, don't you, for other
Yeah,
people?
yeah. I've done some editing. I used to edit. I edited for a little while for Moses McCormick.
Mm,
Actually, Ollie Richards has a video on his channel where he did the Korean uh, Michelle Thomas method. He did a documentary about it. I edited that for him.
nice.
And then I actually have. There's a movie. If you look it up, it's called Night of the Were Rooster. I worked on
Night of
that,
the
man.
Wearers.
I worked on
Wow.
that. My names are in the credits, so I do a lot with like video editing and I write movies and stuff, which I don't as
Okay.
much anymore. I spend most of my time doing Japan. And if you my live stream on Tuesday, I'm in a different spot, but I am a massive Rubik's cube collector
Oh wow.
and solver.
Nice.
So that would
Cool.
be I would put that as my skills, I guess.
Nice. I skills. I'm a teacher, man. By trade, I teach. I think I am good. I think I'm a decent teacher. Um, that's what I'm good at. I trained to be in technology, so my degree is in technology. So web design, stuff like that. Over the past year, I've been developing this skill in the same way I learned a language. Dedication,
Right.
hours and hours of practice of editing, creating videos. So it's not an amazing skill yet, but it's a skill I'm working on. Other than that, yeah, web design, teaching, and video editing.
I'm sure people when I say that I'm an editor are probably like, why are your videos shot so poorly? But here, let me explain this. My number
Go
one
for it.
goal, my number one goal on this channel is to be different from any other channel that you see. And so I leave in everything because I want you to know it's the most true and genuine thing. I'm not editing something out. Not that I don't think a
It's
lot of people
authentic.
I don't think a lot of people are doing that. That's not what I'm saying, but like I want you to know that when I'm speaking, like I'm not taking time being like, "Oh, I said I learned 25 words. I'm going to edit. I'm going to say I learned 30. I'm going to inflate that by a little bit." Like I'm just going, man. And I think that's part of the what's the word? Part of the maybe attraction to my channel is
It's real.
it's a dude, yeah.
Very real.
If you want to see some
YouTube
editing,
has become very. I think it started to go this direction after like Peter McKinnon and stuff blew up, which I love Peter McKinnon stuff. His editing and his filming is amazing. But what's happened to YouTube since then, and maybe a little bit before that as well, is the editing quality has skyrocketed so much that it's pretty much full of that stuff, which is great. Like I love watching quality content, but there's still a demand for super real stuff, like people just talking about things.
yeah.
People still want to watch that stuff. So I think, I mean, obviously your channel blew up in the past couple, like the past week or two. Like
my
people want
my
people
video
want to see real stuff.
my video went up on Lindy's channel, and it was just like my channel. Like I was like, all right, cool, man. Which I felt good. I praised Lindy for sending people, and then Luke Truman was like, hey, if they went to your channel, it was still your content that kept people there. And I was like,
exactly.
I was like, well, thanks for the vote of confidence, Luke. That's cool.
Yeah, man. People come and they see something they like, and then they subscribe.
Yep.
So I think people like that stuff.
Yeah. Come to Japan, Dan. Welcome. Sorry, I'm super far behind. I'm trying to, or maybe not super.
Come to
far
Japan,
behind,
Dan.
But I'm.
He's trying to bring someone to Japan for free.
I'm trying, man. I was so I was supposed to go to Japan this year.
Oh, such a terrible year.
It's the
to have
closest
that
I've ever came. Because like, you know, I have a friend. My friend has been living there for 3 years now. Four. This is his fourth year, I think. Let's see. He was in Korea for 2. I think he's been in Japan since 2016. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so like all I have to do is buy a plane ticket there, right? I don't have to pay for a hotel or anything. So it's like the cheapest I can ever go.
Right.
And then coronavirus was like, ha.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, dude.
No. Oh, it's a weird world we live in, man. Very weird world.
Saluton. Got some Esperanto going on there. I was going to say as well. They taught English 8 years in school, but I learned English myself. It's past 5. I've noticed a lot of people who learn English studied it in school, but when they actually get out of school, like that's when they really kind of like get into it and do whatever.
I think that's why so like having a good second language teacher in school is important. You probably won't learn the language from the class, but if your teacher is really passionate about it and gets you interested, it sort of gives you the jumping off point you need to actually do it on your own, because you're gonna have to do it on your own in the end, but like at least you can tell the difference between people who had a teacher who was into teaching them English versus people who had terrible teachers who were jaded.
Yeah,
it's a big difference.
Absolutely. How can I hope and continue? How can I have hope and continue to learn when I'm not motivated? I think the biggest thing there is to look back at what you've learned so far and just see like, okay, cool. I've actually come a pretty long way. Or even if not, I mean, I've learned a couple of new words. You like if you're I hate to say the word immersing because I know that everybody's not doing that. If you're doing something in the language every day, it's almost impossible for you not to constantly get. Yeah, see you later, Dan. Thanks for coming, man. But it's if you're doing it every day you're going to be just a little bit better than you were the day before, and that takes a long time to add up and see. But if after a month or so you're like, oh man, I'm not really feeling good, look back at where you were a month ago and be like, oh whoa, okay.
Definitely, I agree, and I also think it's really, really important to have goals, to have some kind of real target that you can work towards. If you know what you want and you aim at that, especially with language learning, you can get it. Yeah. But if you don't, if your goals are too sort of, I'm going to use Japanese here, aimai, which means kind of not thought out, like just sort of hazy, not really sure what's going on here, I might. If your goals are too much like that, you're not going to be able to stay motivated because you don't know where you're going.
Right.
Yeah. And if you do have those goals and you're still not motivated, you still don't want to do it, then I think it's important to ask yourself, is this really what I want to be doing? Like, maybe you don't
Yeah.
want to learn a language. Like, not everyone needs to learn a language, to be completely frank with you. And sometimes you need maybe to learn a different language. Try a different language. Maybe see if you're interested in that. Like, maybe you don't actually care at all about the language you're learning.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, I think it's okay to stop doing things you're not interested in. I was learning Spanish for a long time, and like, I just didn't care. So I stopped. But is that a problem? Like, it hasn't been a negative for me at all. I speak Japanese now, so clearly it wasn't a problem. So sort of set goals, and if you still aren't motivated, really have a talk with yourself and figure out whether you actually want to be doing it or not.
Yep. No, I agree completely. I think that's super super critical, man. Because like you're gonna make a lot more progress and be a lot happier if you just jump to doing the new thing that you want to be doing, or the new language, versus spending so much time trying to do something that you have no interest in.
Yeah, forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do because you think you have to do it. When you don't, it's a waste of time, man.
Yep. Let's see. How can I vote? Any tips to stay motivated? Are learning languages across the same family easier than other language families? I think a lot of that depends on motivation.
For sure. Arguably, yes. I think, like, if you learn Spanish, you're gonna have a really easy time with Portuguese.
Right.
Like, if you're learning romantic languages, I think it's much easier to learn the next romantic language.
Yeah.
To your point, yeah. If you don't care about them, it's not going to be any easier than learning another language.
Yeah.
But if you do,
but it definitely helps for sure.
Yeah, it makes it easier
because of the shared vocabulary, if nothing else.
Right. But on the other side, for some people, the other side of that argument, some people find it really confusing, like having such similarities. They get lost. They don't know which language they're speaking, stuff like that. Whereas having a language like Japanese, which has completely opposite grammar to English, it's like just completely different. They find that more like they find it easier to grasp because it's so different. They don't get as they don't mix it up as much.
Right.
But,
I could see that.
But that's not everyone. That's not everyone, but some people.
It takes a special breed of person to enjoy Japanese grammar, in my opinion.
Yeah. Grammar is fun when you start using it. Grammar is it gets a bad rap. And I understand why, because it's boring. It's not fun to study grammar. But when you suddenly are able to say something that you couldn't say before, because of your new grammar, like you can express more complicated ideas the first time you use that new grammar, man, that is awesome feeling. Like, oh my god, a whole new world opens up, literally.
Yeah. Now, I remember when I learned the like, if you're saying I like to do something, the blank blank nogaski desu. Like when I learned that, like I was like it was the greatest feeling ever, because I was like,
dude, it's awesome.
I love to talk about what I love to do, right?
Everyone does.
So,
yeah.
So I was doing it to everything, man. I was like, terebi o miro nogaski desu, or like whatever it was, like, just everything. I was like, I like to watch TV. I like studying languages. Like I was just saying it all the time, man.
Yeah, man. So that's the same thing with grammar that I mentioned with vocabulary. Is learn stuff you wanna talk about. And it can be fun.
Yep. Learn grammar points for sure that are useful to you.
Absolutely.
I think the hardest language to learn on earth is the first one. Edit. Is it expensive to live in Japan? Because I want to do those exchange student programs to learn Japanese.
Depends on where you live. I have extremely low expenses. So like if you work in Japan, salaries comparatively, like if you look at average salaries compared to, for example, China or the United States, they're low. They're very low. But the cost of living outside of Tokyo is actually quite low. I think my total expenses per month are like $800 for everything. That's rent, food, internet, everything, probably. But I don't live in Tokyo, right? In Tokyo, an apartment's going to cost me $800. But here in Nagano, Yeah, probably $800 a month are my expenses.
That's pretty
So
crazy. I think about like you see these things, like I'll see videos of people in convenience stores and like or even restaurants, man. It'll be like huge plates of food and it'll be like 3,500 or not 35. Yeah, what 3,500 yen would be like $3.50, right?
no,
Or no, no,
3,500 is $30.
or maybe I'm thinking maybe yeah,
$35.
that's right. It'll be like nine hundred.
350.
It'll be like 900.
Yeah.
It'll be super cheap though. Like
Yeah.
it's not like it'd be like $5 versus like 10 or 15 here.
Yeah. It's not that expensive. Eating out, yeah, it's not that bad. Especially if you don't eat out much. Like if you don't eat out, it's super cheap. But I guess that's anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very affordable, man. And you can get good food, like healthy-ish stuff for cheaper than you can in the States, I think, significantly.
I'm assuming like
So,
major man, what is the terminology for it? I'm assuming like overproduced. What is the word that they use? Don't buy blank food. Like like I'm assuming there's not as much like over processing of food just to get it out for cheaper in order to be able to sell it for more in Japan. Is that the case? Is it more natural food?
if we're talking about like convenience stores and stuff, like convenience store food in America compared to Japan is like a whole different world. It's fresher in Japan. They actually make it
There.
and then they send it out to the convenience stores that day. And so it's
Gotcha.
like it's not like super healthy or anything, but you could live on it and not die.
Right.
You'd be
Right.
fine. Like
Right.
if you were living off convenience store food in the United States of America,
Oh, dude. Just the amount of
it might.
preservatives and stuff in it, man.
Oh gosh, it'd be rough. But like you could do it here. It would be fine.
Yeah, let's see.
So yeah, the food in general is better,
It's better.
I think.
I'm anxious
But
to try some. Food.
Arguably better. I miss Japanese food when I'm gone more than I miss American food when I'm gone.
Really?
With that said, yeah, no, way more. Like when I lived away from Japan for 1 year, I lived in New Zealand, and man, I could not wait to get back here, and just eat food here. Couldn't wait.
My buddy over there said that I asked him what he missed the most, and he said freshwater fish, and I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Everything's from the ocean here."
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "I guess that like it's not as abundant, I guess, in America where there's, I guess from where it is an island, there's like,
yeah." But the thing for me is I never really ate fish at all when I was in the States. It's not really a thing where I'm from. People don't eat fish.
Where are you from in the United States?
I'm from New Jersey.
Oh, well, okay. I'm from Virginia, so
okay, not that far apart.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I drove to New Jersey in 2012.
Yeah.
2012, I drove up there for. I'm a huge wrestling fan,
Okay.
and Abdullah the Butcher was up there, and like it was like from like he like started in like the 60s, maybe even late 50s, but like he's been wrestling. He's like he like revolutionized a lot of the hardcore wrestling, and I was like, I'm driving to New Jersey to meet Abdullah the Butcher.
Nice.
And then when I was up there,
Where in New Jersey was it?
It was in Rahway.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I drove. Of course, I'm a massive Kevin Smith fan, so I drove down to Leonardo and Red Bank to go to, which is comic shop was closed, but I went by Quick Stop where he filmed Clerks.
Oh wow, nice.
I made like a whole trip out of it because everybody that I know is like, I want to go to New York, and I'm like, I want to go to New Jersey, man, because of my love of like Kevin Smith and stuff.
It's a very unusual desire going to New Jersey.
Let's see. Alan says, I lose motivation, but I want to keep learning because katakana. Oh, I had somebody correct me on on the video I did with Lindy. Katakana. Because, like, when I'm speaking fast, like, I generally don't toss the accent on it. I'm just getting the words out. But, man, I had somebody call me out on it. But,
okay, so just to call that person out, were you speaking English or were you speaking Japanese when you said the word katakana?
No, I was speaking. Well, actually, I think the question even came up. Do you pronounce it that specific way? Like,
okay.
I don't even remember. I definitely wasn't speaking Japanese. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a problem with saying Japanese words with an English accent if you're speaking English. Makes
yeah. If I was like trying to say something like if I wanted to eat, or if I was eating fish, right, and I was like sakana o taberu, then like
right. Then you've got a problem.
We got some issues here. But so much to remember. Oh yeah, so katakana and dakten, I don't know how to write it, and the handakten, don't know how to spell that either. I don't even know what dakten is. Do I not know what does that mean? Is that a writing thing? I don't
Is
know.
that which question is this? Is this
It's
Duckton and Handukten, or with
it's
English names, plural and voice marks? I don't remember what those are.
let's see. Yeah, I'm not even sure what that is. So I'm not
Ah, it's the
sure.
marks. It's the marks. It's the marks that make things.
Oh,
Handukten is the plosive, so like after
gotcha.
you put the circle and it makes wa pa,
Pa.
and Duckten is the two
Yeah.
quotation marks that make wa ba.
Okay.
Okay.
That you just get a feel for. Like it
Yeah.
ultimately clicks. Like
Yep.
it's just like because the thing is like I don't speak Japanese, but if you were to write some hiragana on the screen, like I can read hiragana probably near as close to how fast I can read English. I may not know what it says, but I can read those characters. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if the Handakten what it doesn't matter if that stuff's on there. Like I got it. Like it's you just get used to it. It's not.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it makes it easier because instead of having to remember a different character
50 other
for that,
characters. Yeah.
you just toss I call it the degree mark in the quotes, like, and it just
right.
boom,
Right.
it's doubling up, tripling up, really on some of them. I
Yeah.
think
It
I have
helps.
trouble setting goals for myself. What do you think would be a reasonable goal for me? I have a BA in English, and it's my job, so I know I care. I'm not sure how many words you should study at an advanced stage. I mostly have listening goals. I think goals are something that only you can set. Like, I mean, I can give you some, or we can give you some ideas, but like, it's ultimately kind of up to you. Because, like we were talking about earlier, right? Do you want to sound like a native speaker? Some people do, some people don't. So, like, I definitely wouldn't set that as your goal, maybe ever, just because that's such a daunting task. But set little things, man. My goal for the first 3 months of studying Japanese is to get through, remember the kanji, and have a couple of hundred words in a word bank that I've learned or picked up, in terms of just hearing them through immersion. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but if let's say I learned 200 words, that's 200 more words than I was at 2 months ago when I wasn't studying anything. So just that constant small progress.
Yep. I see in the next comment down for passion for language learning, you say that you're not sure how many words you should study. You have mostly listening goals. And so I think you've already sort of got your answer there. If your goals are for listening, then that's what you should be working on. Like if you don't care about learning more words, you think you've got enough words,
Yeah.
but what you're struggling with is listening, then what you got to do is sort of figure out what level you want to be listening at. Like, what is something you're watching that you would like to be able to listen to at a normal speed, and then work your way up towards that.
Yeah.
So I think you've already answered your own question. That's your goal. Your goal is to have better listening. So just try and specify that. Like, I want to be able to listen to this. So listen to it 10 times. Listen to it at 2 times speed. Then listen to it at normal speed and speed it up and see if you can pick up some of the same words and stuff like that.
Yep.
Sort of mess around
Absolutely.
with that.
That's one thing that I've fallen into a trap of on YouTube is there are some people I watch, like there's a channel that I watch called Masuo Games, who plays Animal Crossing. He speaks,
Okay. I think I've heard of him.
he
Yeah.
speaks very clear and he's very good. And then I watch
Yeah.
a channel called Jackpot, and they speak just ungodly fast, man. Like, so I've ran into that.
I talked to a person, German in Tokyo. I think. Have you talked to her? I don't know if you have.
I don't think so.
She went to high school in Japan for a year when she was in high school, and she was talking about how she mostly hung out with girls in high school, so she could talk with them with no problem. But when guys tried to talk to her, she had no idea what they were saying. So in any language, this is kind of true, but especially in Japanese, like different groups of people and different age groups, they speak totally differently.
Right.
So I don't care how good you are at listening to a certain aspect of Japanese. When you move into a new group or a new age group, you will not know what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
I thought my Japanese was amazing at one point. Like, it's never been amazing, but there's times in your language learning where you think you're amazing and then something knocks you down and you
Right.
realize you're not amazing. And one of those was I had been studying Japanese for about a year, and I could have comfortable conversations with my friends, like no problem, easy. My I lessons were going smooth. I'm like, yeah. And I went to this festival where you carry around a shrine, and it was mostly old dudes that were doing this, like 50s and above. And man, I couldn't pick up a single word they were saying, not a single word.
Whoa.
So I was like, okay, well, there's my weak point. So they invited me to start coming to their monthly nomikais, which is like a drinking party where they would basically talk about stuff going on in the town and they all drank together. So I started going to those. And the next meeting, I had no idea what people were asking me, not a clue. And then the next, a little bit more. And then the next, like as the months went by, it was only once a month, so I didn't get to hang out with them that often. But I slowly was able to understand what they were saying. But the point is every time you move between groups of people, it's like learning a whole new language. So, what was my point there?
Just just about the different listening goals and stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
in terms of
Yeah,
I mean,
oh yeah, because your point with the YouTube channels, yeah, like
yeah.
every area, every age group, it's gonna be a little different. So, yeah, don't get too discouraged. It's normal.
Let's see. I'm gonna answer. Let's read a couple more. I want to hear from anyone else in the comment. It's just fun. Just imagine yourself working on it. Thanks a lot. I want to be able to read more. Can we create a Seabolt fan club? Sure.
Do it.
Yeah.
I'll join. How much kanji does Andy know or remember?
There we go. That's a good one.
So 6 years ago, I finished remembering the kanji. So that was like 2000, what, 200 or something. And I was suddenly struck with the realization that I couldn't read any of them. I understood what they meant. I could write them, and I didn't know what their readings were at all. So I sort of struggled with that for a while. And then when I started working at the kindergarten, I had to write a report in Japanese every single day.
Whoa.
For 4 years. I had to by hand. Like I had to write about what we did that day, if any kids got hurt, who was absent, like our schedule, all these kinds of things. I had to write it by hand every single day. So I slowly started to learn all the readings. But the short answer is I don't know how many I know. But I should know the meaning for about 2,200 something.
Were they lenient on you in terms of like? Were they lenient on you? Like if you were handwriting those, like surely they knew the Japanese.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Because that would suck if they were like, "This is wrong. Get out of here. You're fired."
No, it's nothing like that. It was. I used it as an excuse to study, honestly, because they're like, okay, you got to write this report, give it to the principal so that he knows what you're doing and knows you're not screwing around every day. And I was like, okay, like they would have been fine if I just wrote it all in Hiragana. Like they wouldn't have cared. But I was like, no, I'm going to use this to get better. And so I did, and it worked. And it just kept getting me. Like I actually had every single notebook for 4 years that I used to write it. And looking at the first one and the last one, it's like a different person was writing it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're learning Japanese and you can like even like for a lot of people, it's hard to motivate themselves to write in a journal, but it is really cool to look back and see where you were when you started and where you were at the end.
Yeah.
But like if you don't care to write a journal, it's probably not going to work. But if you're someone who likes journaling in general,
yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said for. I think there's a connection between writing and remembering stuff. Like,
definitely.
I was watching Erased, and the main character ran down the stairs, and the woman's like, I can't remember exactly what she said because again, my Japanese isn't great. I know what she said, but I don't remember how she said it in Japanese. It was something like. I'm not even going to pretend I know. She was asking, "Is that blood?" So I know it was something. But anyway, blood is chi, and the kanji I wrote because I was like, okay, blood, because like I know that I'm going to be watching a lot of like battle royale and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, blood's probably something just in the terms of what I'm watching. I need to know, and I wrote that kanji down, and I remember chi in like. I wrote it down once. I've literally never looked at it again, but like I can still see the kanji in my head and know. So it's like really weird, and it's just this connection between writing and it just I don't know. It helps implement it into your brain.
It's a very intentional act. Like it's you do it more than just thinking about it. Like it makes it real almost. It doesn't work for everything, but it is very helpful. I think.
No, for sure. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to break away from the chat for just a second. Tokini Andy. I'm assuming. Does your name mean sometimes Andy?
Haha. Does it? It has a double meaning. Um, so generally in Japan, Tokini means sometimes, as
Hmm.
you pointed out. So it can mean sometimes Andy. But the reason I chose that name is twofold. First, when I was trying to come up with a name, I couldn't. I didn't have any ideas for a name, but I wanted it to be something related to Nagano because my channel was initially going to be about Nagano. Like that's what I
Okay.
wanted to make it for. So I wanted to use something Nagano like. And the cool thing, well, in any language, there's dialects all over the country, and in
Right.
Nagano, there's some words that are you're not going to hear outside Nagano, and one of them is Tokini.
Okay.
So Tokini, no, Tokini is sometimes, right? But then
Hmm.
Tokini is Nagano dialect for starters or for now.
Ah, okay.
So if you've ever heard the word toriaizu, um, it's something you might say at a restaurant. Like they're like, okay, is that all you want? And you're like, toriaizu ijo desu, which means for now, that's it. Um, or for starters, that's all we're gonna eat. Toriaizu, right? So tokini is the Nagano version of toriaizu. So it's
Oh,
for now, Andy, but for the rest of Japan, it means sometimes Andy. Like so, it implies hanging out with me sometimes. So I got
gotcha.
a nice double meaning there.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, sometimes because I was thinking, I was like, I don't know if it would work in an English standpoint, but like knowing a little bit of Japanese and putting that together, like sometimes Andy, I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool
Yeah, it
idea.
implies the cool thing about Japanese. Yeah, I don't know if you people listening know is you can drop and imply a lot in Japanese. So you can drop grammar points, you can drop words, and you can use implication, contextual implication. So the implication of sometimes Andy written out in Japanese on a YouTube channel, like people will automatically think, okay, like watching Andy sometimes, basically. So
Yeah.
that's fun. But also the main thing is, first of all, I have no idea what to call myself. So toriaizu, Tokini Andy.
Tokini Andy. I like that. I dig that. I
Yeah.
tweeted it, which I saw that you had liked it, but yeah, it originally last year when I was gonna get really serious into Japanese and I was gonna be like focus and like not touch on anything else but Japanese. I almost
Mm.
because my name is Jonathan and I almost named this channel Nijongo instead of
I saw that. I saw
Nihongo.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I was like I don't know, man. Seabolt speaks isn't all right. I mean
I like that name. It's good.
that seems all right. Plus,
Yeah, it works.
a lot of people think Seabolt is a nickname, but that's just legitimately my last name. Like
It's a pretty awesome last name. I wasn't sure either, actually.
yeah,
I
it's my
realized a couple days ago. I was like, that's his actual name.
yeah yeah. It's not super common. Like if
No, it's not.
if you've ever heard of a Seabolt anywhere, there's a very high chance that I'm related to them.
Probably, yeah. I've never heard it
So
before. This is good.
let's see here. Going through here, journaling. Dan's popping in and out. Welcome when you're here. See you later when you're gone. But welcome and goodbye at the same time, Dan. I don't know sure when I'll catch you again. Like in terms of the chat.
Right on.
Do y'all think that learning a language is at all a? Sorry, my English died for a second. Do y'all think that learning a language is all a person can handle when it comes to skills? Like, can a person learn a language and an instrument at the same time?
Mm.
That's I've never
Thought about it?
thought about it.
I think language and instruments are different enough that you're not gonna like confuse the two. I practiced drums while I was learning Japanese, but it all comes down to how much time you have.
Yeah,
So for either of those things, an instrument or a language, as we mentioned earlier, I mean it's gonna come down to repetition, and repetition takes time. So if you only have 1 hour a day outside of work to work on something that
mm-hmm.
you're interested in, whether it's a language or an instrument, you got to sort of take into account, am I going to spend 30 minutes a day on Japanese or whatever, and 30 minutes on flute? Or do I want to get better at one of them faster and just focus a whole hour on it? And that's kind of up to you. Like
Yeah,
I mean, but it's simple. It's whichever you put more time into, you're going to get better at.
yeah,
So yes, you can do it. And if you're like a student who has 10 hours a day free, then
yeah,
sure, there's absolutely no reason you can't do both.
yeah,
Uh, but if you work full time and you've only got an hour or two a day, it's probably more effective to focus on one. But yeah, there's no reason you can't do both.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think it does. It comes down to time. Like right now, I know I work 8 to 5. When I get home, I have a wife and a kid, so I'm gonna play with my son, and he usually goes to bed around 7:30 or 8. So I mean, in like no matter how much I want to study Japanese, like
Right.
it's family time,
That's
and
amazing.
then
You're married, you have a kid, you work a full-time job, and you're putting out like daily content.
yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
and still immersing,
And
an
still immersive.
hour and a half to 2 hours a day.
That's
Like
impressive.
I'm on the grind right now, man. That's weird.
That's amazing.
Um, but yeah, I know that I could do more, but I'm not willing. Like, and that's kind of the
Yeah.
thing with anything. Like, I'm not willing to sacrifice time with my son and my wife to like spend an extra 30 minutes immersing. Like, it's just not. I'm not gonna do it.
Right. It's probably not going to work out well for you in the long term.
That's also very true. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you just gotta. It's a very like you made a calculation basically in your mind, which is more important to me: having a good relationship with my son in the long term,
Right.
or getting a little bit better at Japanese in that sort of amount of time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
everyone needs to sort of
Yeah, and the
figure
reason
out.
I decided that is because I've come to the conclusion, and I think that's why I'm finally sticking with Japanese, is this isn't a 3 month journey. This isn't a 6 month journey. This isn't a year journey. This is, I'm probably never going to stop studying. So, I mean, 30 minutes a day over the course of a year, sure, it adds up. But at the total of studying for 10 years, I mean, that's still
Yeah,
a large chunk of time, but I'm still going to be decent in Japanese at that point. Hope to
right.
God. But like, I'm not sacrificing that time. Like,
No, absolutely not, and you
it's just
shouldn't.
not going to happen.
It's definitely, I think, the right choice. Yeah, and I think what you said there is really important for people to remember. There's been a trend basically since we talked about Benny Lewis earlier. Basically, since then of get fluent in 3 months,
Yeah.
and or 6 months for Japanese. It seems to be 6 months all the time. I think it's because there's the kanji and stuff,
Right.
and even he wasn't able to do it that fast.
Yeah.
But it's always important to remember that the people who are learning these languages fast, they do it full time. Like that's
Yeah, oh,
their
yeah.
job.
They're
They're
getting
doing
paid
it
to do it.
8 to 5 or maybe 12 hours a day while they're studying these languages. So like you put the time in, yeah, you're gonna get there. But for the average person, and we're average people, man, most of us.
Yeah.
That's why it's average. Average is most
Yep.
people, right? So if you can just accept that hey, generally I'm average, so I have this much amount of time, and you're honest with yourself, this is how much time I have.
Yeah.
It might take you a couple of years to learn a language, but who cares, right?
Because
Like,
if you love it enough to learn it, you should want to be able to spend time after
yeah,
that with it anyway, right?
exactly. And if you'll know, if you keep going for 2 years and you're still enjoying it, like, yeah, I made the right choice. I'm enjoying this. But if you're so serious about it that you think, man, I want to learn it faster. I want to learn it faster. If you care that much, like really, truly, then you'll make it happen. Like you'll quit your job and do it or something, right? Like, I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm saying if you do care that much about it, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
In general,
No,
I think.
Absolutely.
So don't set realistic goals. I think think about language learning as a long-term thing because it takes a while, but that's okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, man. Like, it's not a start and stop line. You start and it doesn't stop.
No, never.
Because I mean, like, I use this example in I can't remember if it was the last stream or the stream before last. Emily, that's commenting here, she's not a native English speaker, and she used a word, and she put the definite. I'd never heard that word in my life.
In English, yeah.
So I mean, I'm 32 years old. I've never heard that word in my life. So
It happens to me all the time. Words I don't know in English. It happens.
It does.
And that's also, though, let me just mention, that's also why it's really important to have actually specific goals, because you can study a language, your native language, forever and never know everything about it.
Yep.
You could study, as a native English speaker, English forever, and you still wouldn't know everything about it.
Yep.
So having, like, knowing what your goal is, like, if you reach it, like, okay, now you can sort of inventory, am I happy with my goal, or do I want to keep studying? Like what happened with me when I was studying Japanese is my goal was to speak Japanese. I wanted to speak to people. And I reached that goal. I was able to have conversations, and I was like, okay, what should I do now? Well, maybe I should learn to read better. So I started reading books, trying to read books in Japanese. And I actually made a website called the Hon Repository, which was to help people like find native reading material and stuff.
Yeah.
I got kind of into it. But I found myself reading books that were translated from English to Japanese
Gotcha.
a lot. Like I'm over here reading Harry Potter and The Hobbit. And I asked myself one day, I said, I could read these in my native language, in the native language they were written in. Why am I reading them in Japanese?
Right.
And it was like, it's just because I feel like I need to be able to be better at reading. And I realized at that point, I was like, wait a second, I don't care. Like, I've reached my goal. Let me move on to something else.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. A lot of people feel like, oh, I need to get to this certain level in language learning or else I'm not fluent or something.
Right.
But like, man, you could go forever. And if you want to, if you enjoy it that much, then do it. That's great.
Yep.
But
just try to have a little bit of the content, a little bit of the stuff every day, and and keep going.
You'll get there, man.
Let's see. Let's try to rattle off a couple of the. I don't want to. We're an hour and a half in, almost an hour and a half in. I don't know I don't know what your time is, but I'm not trying. I know that I always try to be mindful of other people's time. So let's try to rattle off
a couple. A little while longer, yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts on learning Latin? Do you think it's worth spending time and effort learning a dead language? I learned Esperanto, so I'm not the person to ask. So I learned a constructed language. So
it goes back to Seabolt's baby girl. It goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. Was do you care, right? Like, are you interested in it? And that's the only answer you need. You don't need it. You don't need to know from us whether it's worth it. Like, are you ever going to be able to speak Latin with someone? No, probably not. You're not going to run into somebody and have a Latin conversation with them. But are you interested in dead languages? Like, is that something you enjoy? Would you like to read books that were written in Latin in their original form? If that's something you're interested in, then of course it's worth it. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't it be?
Yep. And that's the thing, like my goal right now, my goal was always to speak to people until I went to speak Chinese to someone and I froze up to the point of wanting to die. And I was like, you know what? I think the immersion thing is going to work for me because maybe let me just watch TV and understand what they're saying and I'm happy. Because in America, like even the Japanese restaurants around here are ran by Chinese, Koreans, Indonesians. They're not ran by Japanese people. So in America, unless I go to a bigger city, I'm not ever going to speak it. Obviously, I can online like this, but I'm never going to speak it here.
Right.
So.
Yeah, if your goal is, you want to watch content that was done in Japanese, because let's be honest, most of the stuff that was made in Japanese, like anime, movies, all that stuff, video games, the original is way better. Voice acting. Imagine if Yakuza 0, which I was playing the other day, the voice acting, if it was done in English, I guarantee you it's not as awesome as it is in Japanese.
Sometimes that adds to the lore. Did you ever play Shenmue?
I didn't, no.
Okay, Shenmue, that came out on the Dreamcast. I don't know, are you younger? You're younger than me, I presume, right?
No, I'm a year older than you.
Really?
I'm 33.
Wow. You age way better than I do. Maybe it's Japan.
I do.
But yeah, Shenmue, that came out for the Dreamcast when they dubbed it, but it's almost become such its own lore. The voice acting is so bad, so he'll be a car will drive by and they'll be like, "Hey, did you see the black car?" Yeah. But it's but that's almost become its own thing. But yeah, no,
it's The Room.
Yeah, dude, it's
fair.
It's so bad.
It can become comedy, but
but for the most part, I get what you're saying for sure, though.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if that's what you want to be able to do, then yeah, you don't need to be able to speak to do that.
Yeah, I did, and that's the thing. Everybody's always, whenever I tell people I've learned, and this has happened for 10 years. Why are you learning Japanese? Do you like anime? No, I love pro wrestling and movies, and they're like, what?
Why are you learning Japanese?
Yeah, and I'm like, man, Japanese has the best movies, and they have the best pro wrestling on the planet.
They do, the most active, I feel like, now too.
Yeah.
My friend is actually a pro wrestler. Well, low-ranked pro wrestler, but I worked with him for a while.
That's awesome, man. I love
pretty cool.
wrestling.
Still pretty popular here.
Andy is from New Jersey. Passion for language learning. He is from New Jersey. I am from the South. But I feel like I don't. So, I'm from Virginia, which is the South. But
Sort of.
If you could hear the way that some of the people here talk, you would not think that I'm from where I'm from. Like I don't think I'm sure that my accent to some people is probably but like where I'm at, even though it's not like deep south, like it can sound pretty deep south. Like it's a very twangy accent here.
Yeah. As soon as you hit Virginia, accents start changing. You go into stores and stuff. It's like, oh, am I somewhere different?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Alex Trotman, that's probably way late. Well, thank you for coming to the stream. He said I was see you guys later.
See you later, man.
But it's not my style. I prefer to focus on
That long ago.
Come to Japan, then focus on one at a time. My language learning got a lot better when my kids became adults and moved out.
That helps.
Oh my gosh, where am I at? My thing just updated. Here we go. Is this?
I want to become the Laoshu of my state.
Oh my god, what is it? Wait, oh okay. 40. I started young. For sure, I've been learning Japanese for 15 years, and I still don't even consider myself done. Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, I live here too. Yeah, man, with your Midaka. Medaka. Medaka. What is the white fish? What is the Shiroi no Sakana? Remember that? What is that?
Shiroi no Sakana, what was that again?
Midaka, right? For the white
fish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think if I was saying it right. That guy is crazy, maybe motivating, but he's half full of truth and exaggerations. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Speaking of reading, how do you deal with books that are much too difficult for you? Do you look up every word, or do you only whip out a dictionary every 5 or 10 minutes? I don't read books that are too difficult for me.
Yeah, and I've not got to the point where
I think it's a waste of time. Because it's extremely demotivating. You should, if you're gonna read to learn, generally the sort of accepted rule, it's not a rule, but I think it's reasonable, is you should probably understand 90% of what you're reading. Yeah. And you should be able to pick up the words you don't know from context. If you can, then the book is the right level for you. If you have to look up words every, like one word every 2 or 3 pages, it's probably okay, but it's still not going to be fun.
Right.
You're not going to enjoy reading it.
Yeah.
But if you pick a book like, that was a big struggle for me, actually. I couldn't find a book that was the right level because, for starters, I focused on speaking. And speaking Japanese and written Japanese, just like in any language, is very, very different. So finding a book that was appropriate was hard.
Right.
And so I wasn't enjoying it. But then I found a book. It was Majo no Takyubin. It's what the hell is Majo no Takyubin? It's about a witch that becomes a delivery girl.
Whoa.
Huh? Nantoka delivery. Majo no Takyubin. Let me look that up. Anyway, I found that book in Japanese. Majo no Takyubin. No, there it is. What is that in English? I'm really curious because I think everyone will know what it is if I find the name of it. Kiki's Delivery Service.
Okay.
Kiki's Delivery Service. I think it was a Ghibli film, and it was a novel first, and I picked that up, and I read the first few pages, and I didn't have to use a dictionary a single time, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I read.
It's happening.
And it's a book for kids, but it's actually it was a great book. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And I only had to look up words every once in a while, and I learned a bunch of new words. And I think if you can be at that level where you're pretty much getting the gist of things, you'll enjoy it. It doesn't need to be to the level of English where, like, even when I read an English book, there's going to be words I have to look up every once in a while. On my Kindle, I'll be looking up stuff in the dictionary. It's normal. But, so it doesn't have to be like you understand everything 100%, but the more you understand, the more you're going to enjoy it. So the more you're going to keep doing it.
And that's actually one thing I will say in terms of when people mock me for watching incomprehensible input. I do think if you're reading something that's incomprehensible, it's useless because you don't have the context to rely on. If I'm watching something and I don't understand what they're saying, the pictures are still making it comprehensible for me.
It's a big difference. Yeah.
But if I'm reading a book, so I will say in terms of the whole comprehensible versus incomprehensible input thing, if you're reading, it's a bad idea because you don't have pictures or anything to go on.
Yeah.
Versus if I'm watching, like I said, I don't understand, what's happening, but context tells me when this girl's picking up
picture.
Yeah. When this girl's picking up P-switches and throwing them, and she's saying, nagadu, 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 nagadu. Right. Common sense. All right, cool. I get it. She's throwing.
You get the idea. Right. And if it's like an action, like you can still enjoy it. Like if you see robots fighting on screen or something, you don't care what they're saying. It's still awesome what you're
Yeah.
watching.
Oh
So
yeah,
like
absolutely.
it keeps it interesting. But if you're reading a book about robots fighting and you have no idea what they're talking about, you're not gonna know robots are
Yeah.
fighting. It's not fun.
Well, and that's the thing. The only reading, quote unquote, I'm doing right now is like I'll turn subtitles on a TV show, and that's just because sometimes words will pop out at you a little bit more if you see them versus hearing. Because I'm still training my ears.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, I think that I'm not going to focus a lot on reading books because I don't read books in English. So like,
Right, right, right.
like if I'm not like outside of being able to go down to Bellacino's down the road and crack open a book and somebody like, holy crap, you're reading Japanese. Like, why else would I do it? Because I don't normally
Exactly.
read anyway.
Exactly. If you're using it to show off, it's not gonna last long.
Yeah,
Anyway.
so I'm gonna read just in the sake of like subtitles and stuff, just for the sake of trying to see those words come through.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's
Oh,
still not
subtitles are
technically
amazing. Very helpful.
So,
It comes back to our point. I think we brought it up like 15 times during the stream already. Is do what you enjoy and do what you would do anyway in English.
yep.
Consume content in the language you're learning that you would consume if it were in English.
Yep.
If you don't read books in English, why would you start in Japanese? You won't do it. You won't enjoy it.
No, I start books all the time, and I'm just like I get really into it for like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, hey. Well, see, the thing is too, right now I'm like, what is my focus? If my focus is to understand native material, would I rather spend an hour just listening to the language to be able to, again, absorb the sounds, see where the words start and stop, stuff like that, or am I going to read this book?
Right. And you have limited time, so it's like that's an important question. Do you want to spend it doing something you'd probably enjoy if you were doing it in your native language and picking up, that kind of stuff?
Yep.
Or doing something you wouldn't have done anyway and you don't really enjoy?
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy option, I think.
All right, guys, we're going to start wrapping up because like I said, I want to be mindful of your time. An hour and a half, I do appreciate that. I'm going to give it about 30 seconds because there's such a lag on the stream here, but if you guys have any final questions for Andy, let me know, and we will start wrapping up here.
Final countdown.
But Andy also has a Patreon where he does bonus stuff outside of his YouTube channel.
Outside of Genki. It's probably only useful if you're using Genki to learn. Well, that's not true. If you're learning Japanese, it's useful, I think. Yeah. But if you're not, then don't bother. But check out my YouTube channel. There's some fun stuff on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the skits and stuff that you use. I loved all the like the
Ando-san.
Yeah, man.
I need to do Ando-san. He moved over to TikTok mostly, but
I'm sure
I do have.
I feel like that would be huge there. Seabolt, I might as well end it with Seabolt's baby girl. I still don't even understand that, but should I watch videos or movies in my target language with subtitles in the target language, even though I'm a starter and understand like 5% of the topic?
If you want to, why not?
Yeah, I mean, when I do subtitles, I watch with Japanese, even though I don't, and it's just so I can. It's also to get used to seeing the characters, because there has been times when I've been watching and I'll be like, oh, I know that character, so I know that word is now that.
Right.
At the same token, I think if you watch it with your native language, I wouldn't rely on it, like especially as you get further into it. But when you're just starting out and you're understanding so little, it might be what you need to be motivated to keep going.
It could be, yeah. It very much depends on the individual there. I mean, like if you would have watched them anyway, then yeah, why not watch them in your target language and see if you can pick stuff up? Yep. It can definitely help. And yeah, definitely use subtitles, man, in your target language, because sometimes it's really hard to hear what people are saying. And if you can read it, you might actually pick it up and learn to hear it next time. So, yeah, go for it.
I've noticed with Japanese, I struggle. I never knew it until I started reading the subtitle, because like this is my month too. I'm slowly introducing things just for the sake, because I'm really bad with sticking to stuff, so I'm slowly doing it. So I added reading this month in terms of like subtitles. I noticed that I've been mishearing she a ton, and I don't know if it's because they just combine it with stuff all the time. But like
often comes down to that,
yeah. They were saying words, and I would think it was like even like Sue or like something, and then I would see this, and it was like she, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah. A lot of people will, like Japanese people, will say she with various levels of sh. Like in English, we have a very clear sh.
Right.
But often in Japanese, it comes out, especially with girls, it'll often come out more like a si. C,
Yes.
right? But there is no C in Japanese. But
Right.
it's like it's like right in the middle of C and she. So like, and it's different between people, so it can be very easy to misunderstand. Same with su. Like if su is at the end of a word, you usually don't say su. Like hanasu, right? People, which is to speak. Most people wouldn't say hanasu. They say hanasu. Oh no, I guess that's not a good example. That's a terrible example. You would say it that way. I'm
Des
trying to
versus
think.
desu.
Des, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't say desu. You'd say des. So like, it gets a little confusing. But yeah, if you have the subtitles, you can pick that up.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm going to thank you so much for joining, man. I appreciate it a ton. I know that we've interacted and stuff. It's really cool to just sit and chat for a bit.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and thank
stuff.
you guys for watching in the chat.
Yeah, thanks for the comments and all that stuff and asking. Andy's an awesome dude, and he knows what he's speaking about. Pitch accent or not, I'll fight that guy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I went to his channel and I was like, "You don't even have any content on your channel, man. Who are you talking?"
Yep.
But go check out Andy's channel because it is super, super cool. Tons of information. Does Genki lessons, does streams, and all kinds of stuff. So go check that out.
And don't forget to hit the like button on this one and hit the subscribe and the bell on Seabolts.
Hit everything. Just
hit everything. Just
knock
smash
it. Smash it up. So cool. Thank you all for joining, and I will see you guys. Actually, see you guys tomorrow night. I have another stream tomorrow night. So thank you all, and I will see you then.
Have a good one, guys.